He looked at her with eyes made of ice and a heart made of stone. To him, she was invisible, trash to be swept away with a wave of his hand. He laughed at her struggle, mocked her poverty, and insulted her dignity in a language he thought she couldn't understand. He thought money bought him silence. He thought power bought him immunity. But he made one fatal mistake that night in London. He didn't know that the trembling waitress standing before him wasn't just a server. She was a master of the very language he used to destroy her. Stick around, because when Gabriel finally opens her mouth, the silence in the room will be louder than any scream. This is the moment the billionaire learned that dignity has no price tag. The rain in London didn't just fall, it felt like it was trying to erase the city. But inside the Kensington Obsidian, one of Mayfair's most exclusive private dining clubs, the weather didn't exist. Here, the air was climate-controlled to a perfect 70 degrees, scented with white tea and subtle notes of old money. Gabriel Mitchell adjusted her collar in the reflection of a silver serving platter. Her face was pale, the kind of exhaustion that makeup couldn't quite hide. At 26, she should have been finishing her doctoral thesis on Semitic linguistics at Oxford. Instead, she was here, wearing a stiff black waistcoat that smelled of starch, terrified of dropping a spoon. "Gabriel, table 4 needs water. Sparkling, not tap. Do not mess this up," hissed Mr. Sterling, the floor manager. Sterling was a man who looked like a ferret, wearing a tuxedo 3 sizes too small. He ruled the waitstaff with a mixture of paranoia and cruelty. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. Right away," Gabriel whispered, grabbing the crystal pitcher. She moved through the dining room like a ghost. That was the first rule of the Obsidian. Be invisible. The clientele here didn't pay £5,000 for a membership to see the help. They paid to be treated like gods. Gabriel's hands trembled slightly as she poured. She hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days. Every penny she made went to the private care facility in Surrey, where her father was slowly fading away from early-onset dementia. The debts he had left behind, a failed import business in Beirut, had swallowed their family home, their savings, and Gabriel's future. She knew the irony of her situation better than anyone. She had spent 5 years living in the Middle East as a teenager when her father's business was booming. She had walked the souks of Damascus and the malls of Dubai. She had fallen in love with the poetry of Nizar Kabani and the complex musical grammar of Arabic. She spoke it with the fluency of a native, a skill that was now useless to her as she wiped crumbs off a tablecloth for a tech CEO who didn't even look up from his phone. "He's coming!" A frantic whisper rippled through the kitchen staff as Gabriel returned to the service station. "Who?" Gabriel asked, putting down the pitcher. Jenny, a younger waitress with wide, terrified eyes, grabbed Gabriel's arm. "The Sheikh. Sheikh Karim Al-Zayed. The owner called. He's 10 minutes out. Sterling is having a panic attack in the walk-in fridge." Gabriel's stomach tightened. Everyone in the London hospitality scene knew the name. Sheikh Karim Al-Zayed, 32 years old, worth an estimated $12 billion, and possessing a temper that was legendary. He was known for tipping £10,000 on a whim, or having staff fired for making eye contact at the wrong moment. He was a prince of the desert who treated London like his personal playground. "Great," Gabriel muttered, rubbing her temples. "Just what we need." "You have table 1 tonight, Gabriel," Sterling said, emerging from the back, looking sweaty and manic. "That is the Sheikh's table. I am putting you there because you are quiet. You do not flirt. You do not giggle. You serve and you disappear. Do you understand?" "I understand, Mr. Sterling." "If you upset him," Sterling leaned in, his breath smelling of coffee and fear, "you won't just lose this job. I will ensure you never work in this city again. He is meeting with Julian Thorne, the property tycoon. This is a billion-pound merger. Flawless service. Go." Gabriel took a deep breath. She smoothed her apron. She told herself it was just a few hours. Just a few hours, and she could pay the facility bill for another month. She could handle arrogance. She could handle rich men. But she had no idea that tonight the arrogance would get personal. The heavy oak doors swung open. The ambient chatter in the restaurant died down instantly. It was a vacuum of silence that usually accompanied true power. Walking in was a phalanx of bodyguards, massive men in dark suits who scanned the room for threats. And behind them, striding with the casual confidence of a man who owned the very air he breathed, was Sheikh Karim Al-Zayed. He was undeniably handsome, sharp jawline, trimmed beard, and eyes that were dark and piercing. He wore a bespoke Italian suit that probably cost more than Gabriel's father's lifetime earnings. But there was a sneer on his lips, a look of perpetual boredom and disdain as he surveyed the room. He didn't wait to be seated. He walked straight to the prime corner booth, table 1, snapping his fingers at Sterling without looking at him. "Drink. Now," Karim said. His voice was deep, accented but clear. "Of course, Your Highness. Immediately." Sterling bowed so low he nearly tipped over. He frantically motioned to Gabriel. Gabriel approached the table, her heart hammering against her ribs. She kept her eyes lowered, focusing on the polished mahogany of the table. "Good evening, gentlemen," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "May I start you with—" "Scotch," Karim interrupted, not looking at her. He was busy adjusting the cuffs of his shirt, looking at his guest, Julian Thorne. "Blue Label. Leave the bottle." "And for you, sir?" she asked Thorne. "The same," Thorne grinned. He was a greasy man with too much hair gel. "And bring some of those oysters." Gabriel nodded and turned to leave. "Wait," Karim said. Gabriel froze. She turned back. For the first time, Karim looked at her. He didn't look at her face. He looked her up and down, like he was inspecting a piece of furniture that had a scratch on it. "This tablecloth," he said, pointing a manicured finger at a microscopic wrinkle near the edge. "It is uneven." I apologize, sir," Gabriel stammered. "I can change it," he commanded, waving his hand dismissively. "And be quick about it. I don't like looking at incompetence while I try to do business." Gabriel felt the heat rise in her cheeks. The table was fully set with heavy silver and crystal. Changing the cloth meant clearing everything while they sat there. It was a power move, a humiliation tactic. "Right away, sir," she whispered. As she began to clear the heavy plates, her hands shaking, she heard Karim sigh loudly. He leaned in toward Julian Thorne. "Look at this," Karim said. Gabriel froze. He wasn't speaking English anymore. He had switched to Arabic. The dialect was Gulf Arabic, Khaliji, fast and guttural. "They dress them up in these uniforms to make them look civilized," Karim continued in Arabic, a cruel smirk playing on his lips, assuming the white waitress with the messy bun had no clue what he was saying. "But you can smell the desperation on her. It's pathetic." Gabriel's grip on the silver fork tightened until her knuckles turned white. She understood every word, every syllable. She bit the inside of her cheek, tasting blood. "Do not react," she told herself. "Think of your father. Think of the bills." She finished clearing the table, replaced the cloth with agonizing slowness while they watched, and reset the table. She didn't look up. She didn't speak. She was just the help, the desperate, pathetic help. Or so he thought. By the time the main course arrived, the tension at table 1 was thick enough to choke on. Gabriel was running on adrenaline and suppressed rage. Every time she approached the table, She had to endure the Sheikh's dismissive gestures and the way he spoke about her to Julian Thorne in Arabic, treating her presence as a private joke. "The merger needs to happen by Friday," Thorne was saying, cutting into his steak. "But the zoning laws in that district are a nightmare, Karim." Karim swirled his scotch, looking bored. "Zoning laws are for poor people, Julian. We pay the right councilman. The laws disappear. It is simple." Gabriel arrived with a tray of side dishes, roasted vegetables, truffle mash, and a boat of gravy. As she leaned in to place the gravy boat near Thorne, the heavy door to the kitchen swung open behind her. A busboy, rushing to clear a nearby table, bumped into her elbow. It wasn't a hard bump, but it was enough. The silver boat tipped. Time seemed to slow down. Gabriel watched in horror as a stream of hot, dark brown gravy arced through the air. It missed the table. It missed the floor. It landed squarely on the sleeve of Sheikh Karim's pristine, light grey custom suit. The restaurant went silent. Even the piano player in the corner seemed to hesitate. Gabriel gasped, horrified. "Oh my God! Sir, I am so sorry. She reached for a napkin, her instinct to help kicking in. Karim stood up so abruptly, his chair screeched backward, knocking into the wall. He looked at the brown stain on his arm, as if it were toxic waste. Then he looked at Gabriel. The look in his eyes wasn't just anger. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. "Do not touch me," he roared, slapping her hand away as she reached out with the napkin. The sound of the slap, skin against skin, echoed through the silent room. He didn't hit her face, he hit her hand, but the violence of the gesture made Gabriel stumble back. Mr. Sterling appeared out of thin air, looking like he was about to faint. "Your Highness, I cannot apologize enough. Gabriel, what have you done?" "You incompetent cow," Karim shouted, his English perfect, but laced with venom. "Do you know how much this suit costs? It costs more than your entire life." "It was an accident," Gabriel stammered, tears stinging her eyes. "The busboy, he bumped me." "I don't care about excuses." Karim grabbed a glass of water from the table and threw the contents onto the floor near her feet, shattering the crystal. Shards of glass skittered across the polished wood. "You are clumsy. You are stupid. You are a waste of space." He turned to Sterling. "Get this filth out of my sight. And I expect this meal to be free. And I expect the bill for this suit to be sent to her directly." Sterling was trembling. Yes, of course. "Gabriel, get out. Leave. Now. You're fired." Gabriel stood there, humiliated. The entire restaurant was staring. Julian Thorne was snickering behind his hand. The other diners were whispering, some looking pitying, others looking annoyed that their dinner was interrupted. She felt small. She felt dirty. The shame burned in her chest like a hot coal. She turned to leave, her head down, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. She just wanted to run. She wanted to vanish. But then Karim made a mistake. He couldn't just let her leave. He had to have the last word. He had to twist the knife. As Gabriel turned her back, Karim sat down, brushing his sleeve aggressively. He leaned toward Thorne, shaking his head, and switched back to Arabic, speaking loudly, confident in his privacy. "Wallah," Karim sneered in Arabic. "This is why I hate the West. The women here, they are like stray dogs. No breeding, no intelligence. She probably doesn't even know who her father is. Just an uneducated peasant fit only for scrubbing floors." He laughed, a cruel, deep laugh. "She has the eyes of a cow and the brain of one too." Gabriel stopped walking. Her hand was on the kitchen door. She froze. The tears on her cheeks went cold. Something inside her snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet, terrifying sound of a breaking point being reached. The exhaustion, the fear of the bills, the worry for her father, the years of studying, the pride she had swallowed to keep this job. It all crystallized into a hard, diamond-sharp rage. No breeding? Uneducated peasant? No intelligence? Gabriel let go of the door. Mr. Sterling saw her stop. "Gabriel, I told you to leave!" he hissed. Gabriel ignored him. She turned around. She didn't look like the trembling waitress anymore. She stood up straight, her spine steel. She wiped the tear from her cheek with a slow, deliberate motion. She walked back toward table 1. "What are you doing?" Sterling squeaked, trying to block her path. "Security." Gabriel sidestepped him with a grace that surprised him. She walked right up to the Sheikh's table. Karim looked up, annoyed. "I thought I told you to get out. Do you want me to have you arrested?" Gabriel looked him dead in the eye. The silence in the room stretched thin. And then she opened her mouth. "Ya Sheikh Karim," she began. The words didn't come out in English. They came out in flawless, classical Arabic, Fusha, the formal language of diplomats, poets, and royalty. Her pronunciation was impeccable, her accent indistinguishable from someone who had studied at the highest levels in the Levant. "You speak of breeding," she continued in Arabic, her voice ringing clear and melodic through the restaurant. "Yet you display the manners of a street goat." Karim's jaw dropped. The glass of scotch halfway to his mouth stopped in mid-air. Julian Thorne looked between them, confused, realizing the language had changed, but sensing the shift in power. "You wear a suit of Italian silk," Gabriel went on, her Arabic flowing like water, rich and devastating. "But it cannot hide the fact that your soul is made of cheap polyester. You call me uneducated? I am a doctoral candidate in Semitic philology. I speak 4 languages. I know the history of your family better than you do." She took a step closer, leaning down so her face was level with his. The entire restaurant was paralyzed. No one understood what she was saying, but they understood the tone. It was the tone of a queen addressing a naughty child. "You think money makes you a man?" she whispered in Arabic, her eyes blazing. "Money is just paper. Dignity. Dignity is something you cannot buy, and you clearly never inherited. My father may be sick, and I may serve food to pay his bills, but I have never, ever been as poor as you are right now." She straightened up, switching back to English for the benefit of the room, her voice dripping with icy calm. "And by the way," she pointed to the stain on his sleeve, "club soda will get that out. But nothing will remove the stain of your arrogance." She reached into her apron, pulled out her name tag, and dropped it onto the table. It landed with a soft clatter next to his scotch. "I quit." Gabriel turned on her heel and walked away. The silence that followed was absolute. Karim sat there, his mouth slightly open, his face draining of color. For the first time in his life, he was completely, utterly speechless. He watched her walk away, the echo of her perfect Arabic haunting the air around him. He had expected a servant. He had found a warrior. And in the shadows of the restaurant, a solitary figure sitting at table 7, an older woman with sharp eyes and a veil loosely draped over her hair, put down her teacup. She had watched the entire exchange, and unlike the others, she had understood every single word. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "Ali," the woman said quietly, "find out who that girl is. Find out everything. Now." The adrenaline that had fueled Gabriel's exit from the Kensington Obsidian didn't last long. It evaporated the moment the heavy brass doors of the restaurant swung shut behind her, dumping her out into the cold, relentless London drizzle. She stood on the wet pavement, shivering in her thin white waitress shirt, her black waistcoat dampening quickly. The euphoria of standing up for herself crashed into the wall of reality. She was unemployed. She had just insulted one of the most powerful men in the world, and she had 0 savings. "Stupid," she whispered to herself, wrapping her arms around her chest. Stupid, stupid pride. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, cracking the screen slightly as her numb fingers fumbled with it. It was the Oakwood Care Facility. "Hello?" Gabriel answered, her voice trembling. "Miss Mitchell?" "This is Nurse Harper." The voice on the other end was kind but grave. "I'm calling about your father. He had a rough episode this evening. He became quite agitated, looking for your mother. We had to sedate him slightly." Gabriel closed her eyes, leaning against the rough brick wall of the alley. "Is he okay now?" "He's resting." "But Gabriel, we need to talk about the payment for next quarter. The specialized dementia care costs have risen, and your account is already flagged as overdue from last month. If we don't receive a payment of £4,000 by Friday, we'll have to initiate a transfer to a state facility." Gabriel felt the bile rise in her throat. A state facility. Overcrowded, understaffed. It would kill him. He needed the specific language therapy and familiarity of Oakwood. I have the money coming," Gabriel lied, the desperation making her voice pitch up. "I just picked up extra shifts. I'll pay it, I promise. Just give me until the weekend." "Friday, Gabriel. I'm sorry, but administration is strict." The line went dead. Gabriel sank down onto a wet crate near the service entrance, burying her face in her hands. She had just thrown away her only source of income because a billionaire bruised her ego. How could she be so selfish? Dignity didn't pay for dementia medication. Pride didn't keep the lights on. Meanwhile, inside the penthouse suite of the Dorchester Hotel, the atmosphere was volatile. Sheikh Karim al-Zayed paced the floor like a caged tiger. He had discarded the ruined jacket, throwing it into a bin worth more than most cars. He was wearing a fresh silk robe, but his fists were clenched. "She humiliated me," Karim snarled, pouring himself another drink. In front of Thorne, in front of everyone. Julian Thorne was sitting on the plush velvet sofa, scrolling through his phone, looking amused. "Honestly, Karim, it was kind of impressive. I've never heard a British girl speak Arabic like that. What did she say to you? You looked like you'd seen a ghost." "She said nothing of consequence," Karim lied, turning away to look out at the London skyline. He couldn't admit to Thorne what she had actually said. The words burned in his mind. "Your soul is made of cheap polyester." It wasn't just the insult. It was the accuracy. "Find her," Karim commanded, his voice low. "Who?" "The waitress. The girl. Gabriel." Thorne laughed. "Why? To sue her?" "She has nothing, Karim. Let it go. We have the merger to worry about." "I don't care about the merger right now," Karim shouted, spinning around. "I want her found. I want to know who she is. I want to know how a waitress in Mayfair speaks classical Fusha better than my own legal counsel. And then I will decide her fate," Karim said darkly. "No one walks away from me like that. No one." But Karim wasn't the only one looking for Gabriel. The next morning, Gabriel sat in a cramped coffee shop in Brixton, nursing a lukewarm tea. Her laptop was open, displaying a depressing list of application rejected emails. Sterling had made good on his threat. She had called 3 restaurants for shifts, and the moment she gave her name, they hung up. The blacklist was real. She was typing a cover letter for a cleaning job at a warehouse when a shadow fell across her table. Gabriel looked up. Standing there was a man she didn't recognize. He was older, perhaps 50, with salt and pepper hair and a sharply tailored navy suit. He held himself with a military stiffness. "Miss Gabriel Mitchell?" he asked. Gabriel tensed, instantly defensive. "Who's asking?" "My name is Ali," the man said politely. "I represent a private party who is interested in your unique skill set." Gabriel let out a bitter laugh. "If you're from Sterling, tell him I'm not coming back to apologize. And if you're from Sheikh Al-Zayed, tell him I don't have any money for a lawsuit, so he's wasting his time." Ali smiled, a small crinkling of the eyes that was surprisingly warm. "I am not from Mr. Sterling, and while I am associated with the Al-Zayed family, I do not report to Sheikh Karim." Gabriel paused. "Then who?" "I work for Sheikha Fatima Al-Zayed," Ali said reverently, "the matriarch of the family. She was dining at the Obsidian last night. She saw everything." Gabriel's blood ran cold. "Great. So the grandmother wants to yell at me too." "On the contrary," Ali said, placing a heavy cream envelope on the sticky table. "She would like to offer you a job." The car Ali drove was a Bentley, quiet as a tomb and smooth as glass. Gabriel sat in the back, picking at her fingernails. She felt like she was being driven to her execution. Why would the Sheikh's grandmother want to hire the woman who insulted her grandson? It was a trap. It had to be. But the envelope in her bag contained a check for £5,000. A consultation retainer, Ali had called it, just for showing up. That check was already deposited via her banking app, and the transfer to the care facility was scheduled. Whatever happened next, her father was safe for another month. That gave her the courage to face the devil. They arrived not at a hotel, but at a massive limestone townhouse in Belgravia. Security was tight. Gabriel was ushered through heavy doors, past silent servants, into a library that smelled of old leather and jasmine oil. Sitting in a high-backed wing chair by the fireplace was a woman who radiated authority. Sheikha Fatima was tiny, perhaps in her 70s, dressed in a traditional abaya embroidered with gold thread. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes were sharp, black beads that missed nothing. Gabriel stopped in the middle of the room. She didn't bow. She didn't curtsy. She stood straight. "Come closer, child," Fatima said. Her English was heavily accented but precise. Gabriel stepped forward. "Mrs. Your Highness," Gabriel corrected herself. "Fatima is fine," the woman said. She gestured to the chair opposite her. "Sit. Tea?" "No, thank you." Fatima sipped her own tea, watching Gabriel over the rim of the cup. "You have fire. I like fire. Too many people in this city are made of wet paper." "I apologize for my behavior last night," Gabriel said stiffly. "It was unprofessional. But your grandson—" "My grandson is an idiot," Fatima interrupted calmly. Gabriel blinked. "Excuse me." "Karim," Fatima sighed, placing the cup down. "He is brilliant with numbers. He can turn 1 million into 10 million while he sleeps. But he has lost his way. He has forgotten where he comes from. He treats people like commodities. He thinks because he went to Harvard and wears Italian suits, he is above the laws of decency." Fatima leaned forward. "I heard what you said to him. Street goat. It was poetic." A small smile tugged at the corner of Fatima's mouth. "I shouldn't have said it," Gabriel admitted. "You should have said it louder," Fatima countered. "He needs to hear it. But that is not why you are here. I did my research on you, Gabriel Mitchell, daughter of Robert Mitchell. Lived in Beirut from 2010 to 2015, top of your class at Oxford, specialization in historical linguistic analysis. You did a background check? I am a paranoid old woman. Humor me." Fatima picked up a file. "I have a problem, Gabriel. The Al-Zayed Corporation is trying to acquire the rights to a massive historical redevelopment site in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia. It is a heritage site. To get the contract, we must prove we respect the history. We have to translate and catalogue thousands of pages of Ottoman-era land deeds and Bedouin poetry that establish ownership. Fatima tossed the file onto the table. Karim is in charge of this deal, but he is failing. He keeps sending in lawyers from New York who don't know the difference between a verb and a noun in Arabic poetry. The local elders are insulted. They are about to ban us from the project. Gabriel looked at the file. And you want me to translate them? I want you to be the head of cultural heritage for the project, Fatima said. You will oversee the translation. You will verify the history. And most importantly, you will accompany Karim to every meeting with the elders to ensure he does not open his mouth and ruin everything. Gabriel laughed. It was a nervous, incredulous sound. You want me to work with him? He hates me. He fired me. He doesn't run the family, Fatima said, her voice turning to steel. I do. He answers to the board, and I am the chairman of the board. He will never agree to it. He doesn't have a choice. If this deal fails, he loses his position as CEO. He knows this. Fatima locked eyes with Gabriel. I need someone who isn't afraid of him. Everyone on his payroll is a yes man. You are not a yes man. You are what we call a pebble in the shoe. Gabriel hesitated. How much? Fatima named a figure. It was an annual salary that looked like a phone number. It was enough to pay off her father's debts entirely. It was enough to buy a house. It was freedom. But there is a catch, Fatima added. You must deal with him. I will not intervene in your daily arguments. If you quit, you get nothing. If he fires you without my permission, he loses his bonus. You are stuck together until the deal is signed. Gabriel thought of the rainy alleyway. She thought of the care home. She thought of Karim's arrogant face. When do I start? Gabriel asked. Tomorrow morning, Fatima smiled. 8 a.m., Al Zayed Global Headquarters. Don't be late. The Al Zayed Global Headquarters was a glass needle piercing the sky in the financial district. The lobby was all marble and intimidation. Gabriel walked in at 7:55 a.m. She had spent the last of her savings on a new outfit, a sharp navy blue pencil skirt and a cream blouse. She pulled her hair back into a severe, professional bun. She looked like a different person from the waitress in the waistcoat. She swiped the security badge Ali had given her. The turnstile beeped green. Access. Granted. Executive floor. The elevator ride was smooth and silent. When the doors opened on the 45th floor, she stepped into a bustling office. People were running around with tablets and coffees. Can I help you? A receptionist asked, looking Gabriel up and down skeptically. I'm Gabriel Mitchell, the new head of cultural heritage. The receptionist frowned. I don't have that role in the directory. Are you sure you... She's with me, a voice boomed from the hallway. Gabriel turned. Ali was there, smiling. Right this way, Miss Mitchell. The morning briefing is just beginning. Ali led her down a long corridor, lined with modern art. He stopped in front of double-glass doors. He doesn't know you're coming, Ali whispered. Good luck. He pushed the doors open. It was a boardroom that screamed power. A massive oval table sat in the center. At the head of it sat Sheikh Karim. He looked immaculate, his beard trimmed, his suit dark grey. He was mid-sentence, yelling at a terrifyingly expensive lawyer. I don't care about the font size, Johnson. I care that the contract looks weak. Fix it, Karim shouted. He looked up as the doors opened. Ali, Karim said, his voice softening slightly. What is it? I told you not to interrupt the... His eyes slid past Ali and landed on Gabriel. For a second, there was silence. Absolute heavy silence. Karim blinked. He squinted. Then recognition dawned. His eyes widened, and his face went a shade of red that clashed with the decor. "You," he breathed. "Good morning, Mr. Al-Zayed," Gabriel said coolly, clutching her portfolio. "What is she doing here?" Karim stood up, pointing a finger at her. "Security. How did this woman get in the building? She is a stalker. Get her out." The lawyers and executives around the table looked confused and terrified. "I am not a stalker," Gabriel said, walking calmly to the empty chair at the opposite end of the table, directly facing him. She pulled it out and sat down. "I am your new colleague." "Colleague?" Karim let out a harsh, incredulous laugh. "You are a waitress. You drop gravy on people. You are not a colleague." "Actually," Ali interjected, stepping forward and handing a document to Karim, "she is the new head of cultural heritage for the Diriyah project, appointed by the chairman this morning. Her contract is signed and countersigned." Karim snatched the paper. He scanned it, his eyes darting furiously across the lines. He saw his grandmother's signature, the seal of the family trust. He crumpled the paper in his fist. "This is a joke. Grandmother is playing a joke." "It is not a joke, sir," Ali said. Sheikha Fatima was quite clear. Miss Mitchell is the only linguist she trusts to handle the verification of the deed translation. Without her sign-off, the project funds are frozen. Karim looked like he was about to explode. He looked at Gabriel, who was calmly arranging her notepad and pen on the table. "You," Karim hissed, leaning over the table, "you planned this. You manipulated an old woman." "I was offered a job," Gabriel replied, meeting his gaze with level eyes. "And unlike you, I need to work for a living. So, are we going to discuss the Diriyah zoning laws, or are you going to keep throwing a tantrum?" A gasp went around the room. No one spoke to Karim like that. Karim stared at her. His chest was heaving. He wanted to throw her out the window, but he knew his grandmother. If he fired Gabriel, the project died. If the project died, the board would eat him alive. He slowly, agonizingly, sat back down. "Fine." Karim spat the word out like a curse. "You want to work? Let's see if you can work." He grabbed a thick, leather-bound folder from the center of the table and slid it aggressively across the polished wood. It stopped inches from Gabriel's hands. "This came in this morning," Karim said, a cruel smirk returning to his face. "It is a handwritten claim from a rival tribe contesting the land borders. It is written in a dialect from the 1800s that is barely legible. My top 3 translators have been crying over it for 2 hours. They say it makes no sense." Karim crossed his arms. "Translate it. Right now, in front of everyone. If you make one mistake, if you hesitate, you leave. Grandmother or no grandmother." The room held its breath. The other executives looked at Gabriel with pity. It was an impossible task. Gabriel opened the folder. The page was yellowed parchment, covered in swirling, dense Arabic calligraphy that looked more like art than writing. It was messy, archaic, and full of idioms that hadn't been used in a century. Gabriel adjusted her glasses. She ran her finger down the first line. She looked up at Karim. "Well?" he taunted. "Too hard for the waitress?" "No," Gabriel said. "It's not hard. It's just amusing." "Amusing?" "Yes," Gabriel said. "Your translators couldn't read it because they are reading it as a legal complaint. It's not a legal complaint." "What is it then?" "It's a satire," Gabriel said, a small smile playing on her lips. "This tribe isn't claiming the land legally. They are mocking your grandfather. Look here." She pointed to a squiggle. "This isn't the word for border. It's a localized Bedouin idiom for camel's backside. They are saying your offer is worth less than the dust on a camel's backside." There was a stifled snort from the end of the table. One of the junior lawyers covered his mouth. Kareem's face went blank. "What?" "It's a poem," Gabriel continued, gaining confidence. "A mocking poem. They aren't suing you, Kareem. They are laughing at you because your initial offer was so low it was insulting. They are waiting for a real offer." She closed the folder. "If you send lawyers to respond to this, they will never sell. You need to send a poet. You need to send an apology in the same meter and rhyme scheme to show you have wit. That is the only way to earn their respect." She pushed the folder back to him. "I can draft the response by lunch," she said nonchalantly. The room was dead silent again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was awe. Kareem stared at the folder. He knew enough Arabic to know she might be right, but he lacked the fluency to be sure. But the confidence, the sheer competence she radiated. He looked at Gabriel, really looked at her. The uniform was gone. The fear was gone. In her place was an intellectual powerhouse who had just saved him from making a fool of himself in international court. He hated her even more. And yet, beneath the hate, a spark of something else flickered. A challenge. "Draft it," Kareem growled, refusing to look impressed. "But if the deal falls through, it is on your head." "Understood," Gabriel said. "Now, about my office space. I assume I won't be working from the broom closet?" Kareem gritted his teeth. "Give her the corner office, the one next to mine." "But sir," the receptionist squeaked, "that was reserved for Mr. Thorne." "Thorne can sit in the hallway," Kareem snapped. "Meeting adjourned." He stormed out of the room, his cape of arrogance fluttering behind him. But as he left, Gabriel noticed something. He didn't slam the door. She let out a breath she had been holding for 10 minutes. Her hands were shaking under the table. She had survived the first round. But she knew this was just the beginning. The war had just begun, and the battlefield was the office next door. The next 3 weeks at Al Zayed Global were less like a professional workplace and more like high-stakes trench warfare. Gabriel's office, the coveted corner spot, became her bunker. She worked 12-hour days, immersed in ancient texts, cross-referencing digitized Ottoman land registries with oral histories recorded in the 1970s. She was brilliant, efficient, and undeniable. Her response to the tribal satire, a beautifully crafted, self-deprecating poem acknowledging the Al Zayed family's new money status while honoring the tribe's ancient lineage, had worked miraculously. The elders had agreed to a meeting. Kareem hated it. Every success of hers was a reminder of his initial misjudgment. He stalked the corridors, barking orders at subordinates, his temper shorter than ever. He hated that his grandmother was right. He hated that the waitress was better at this specific job than any Oxford-educated lawyer he had on retainer. But most of all, he hated that he couldn't stop watching her. The glass wall separating their offices had blinds, but Kareem rarely closed his. He would catch himself staring at her as she worked, her brow furrowed in concentration, absently chewing the end of a pen. She wasn't the cowed servant in the waistcoat anymore. In her tailored suits, commanding her small team of researchers, she was formidable. The tension finally came to a head on the company's Gulfstream G650 en route to Riyadh. It was just the two of them, plus Julian Thorne, who had managed to worm his way onto the trip as a key investor consultant, much to Gabriel's dismay. Thorne spent the first hour of the flight nursing a vodka tonic and glaring at Gabriel, still bitter about losing his office space. "So, Gabriel," Thorne sneered, swirling his ice. "Quite the Cinderella story, isn't it? From scraping plates to flying private. Who exactly did you have to impress? to get this gig. Besides the grandmother, I mean. Gabriel didn't look up from the tablet where she was reviewing cultural protocol notes. I impress the person who matters, Julian, the one who signs the checks. I suggest you focus on your own portfolio before you find yourself scraping plates. Karim, sitting across the aisle in a plush leather armchair, actually snorted. He quickly covered it with a cough, returning his gaze to his laptop. "Watch your mouth, staff," Thorne snapped, his face reddening. "She is not staff, Julian," Karim said quietly, without looking up. "She is a director. Show some respect." The silence in the cabin was deafening. Thorne looked like he'd been slapped. Gabriel looked up, surprised. It was the first time Karim had publicly defended her. Karim felt the weight of her gaze and finally looked at her. For a moment, the hostility dropped. They were just two people, tired, hurtling through the stratosphere at 600 miles an hour. "The meeting tomorrow," Karim said, his voice stiff. "The Al-Fayed tribe elders are traditional, extremely conservative." "I know," Gabriel said, softening slightly. "I've read their entire tribal history. I know their dialect, their customs. I know not to extend my hand first. I know to address Sheikh Abdullah by his full honorific." Karim nodded slowly. He saw the stack of books on her tray table, dense academic texts on Najdi culture. She wasn't just winging it. She was preparing for war. "Why do you do it?" Karim asked suddenly. The question slipped out before he could stop it. "Do what?" "Work this hard. For us. After what I said to you." Gabriel looked out the window at the clouds far below. She thought of her father, sitting in the common room at Oakwood, finally wearing clean clothes, his medication adjusted, looking peaceful for the first time in months. "Because I have people depending on me, Karim," she said quietly, using his first name for the first time. "Not everyone has $1 billion safety net to fall into when they mess up. Some of us have to actually be good at what we do." The barb landed, but Karim didn't get angry this time. He just looked at her, really looked at her. The way the cabin light caught the tiredness around her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. He realized, with a jolt of genuine terror, that the waitress from London was the most impressive person he had ever met. In the seat behind them, Julian Thorne watched the exchange, his eyes narrowing into slits of pure malice. He saw the shift in Karim. He saw his influence slipping away. "Enjoy the flight, Cinderella," Thorne thought, taking a final gulp of his drink. "Because when the clock strikes midnight in the desert, you're going to turn back into a pumpkin, and I'm going to be the one smashing it." The heat hit Gabriel like a physical blow the moment she stepped off the plane in Riyadh. It was a dry, searing heat that seemed to suck the moisture right out of her skin. A convoy of black SUVs took them from the airport, past the gleaming skyscrapers of the capital, and out into the open desert. Their destination was a traditional encampment near the historic ruins of Diriyah, where the Al-Fayed elders insisted on meeting. The tent was massive, woven from black goat hair, carpeted with exquisite Persian rugs. The air inside smelled of roasting lamb, strong cardamom coffee, and the smoky scent of oud wood burning in silver braziers. Gabriel wore a modest, high-necked black pantsuit, loosely cut to handle the heat, her hair covered by a simple, elegant silk scarf in respect for the elders' traditions. As they entered, Karim tensed visibly. 5 old men sat cross-legged on cushions at the far end. In the center was Sheikh Abdullah, a man with a weathered face and eyes like ancient flint. Karim approached, bowing respectfully, offering the traditional Arabic greetings. Gabriel followed a step behind, mirroring his movements perfectly, keeping her eyes demurely lowered until addressed. Sheikh Abdullah ignored Karim and looked directly at Gabriel. So, the old sheikh rumbled in thick, dialect-heavy Arabic. This is the Western scholar who writes poetry about camelback sides. The tent went silent. Karim paled. Gabriel slowly raised her head. She looked the old man in the eye, a calculated risk, but necessary to show strength. Sayyidi Sheikh Abdullah, Gabriel replied in flawless, respectful Arabic, her voice steady. It was a poor attempt to match the wit of the great Al-Fayed poets. I merely hope to show that while we seek the future, we respect the past that you guard. The old man stared at her for a long, agonizing minute. Then a deep, barking laugh erupted from his chest. "Better than the lawyers you sent last time, Karim," Abdullah shouted, slapping his knee. They smelled of fear and cheap cologne. This one smells of books and courage. "Sit. We will drink coffee." Karim let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He shot a glance at Gabriel, a look that was almost grateful. The negotiations began. For 3 hours it was a grueling dance of etiquette and hard bargaining. Gabriel was magnificent. She translated not just the words, but the intent behind them. When the elders used obscure proverbs to express doubt, Gabriel countered with appropriate historical precedents that eased their fears. She was bridging 2 worlds that had been clashing for months. Karim watched her, mesmerized. He saw the respect growing in the elder's eyes. He felt a strange swelling in his chest. Pride. He was proud of her. They were in the final stages. The massive leather portfolio containing the final land deed agreement was brought out for signing. Julian Thorne, who had been sitting silently in the back corner of the tent, sweating profusely in the heat, stood up. "If I may," Thorne said in English, approaching the table. "As a representative of the investment arm, I just need to do a final verify on the financial appendix before signatures." It was highly irregular, but Karim, exhausted and eager to finish, waved his hand. "Make it quick, Julian." Thorne blocked Karim's view with his body as he leaned over the document. His hand moved quickly, subtly. He pulled a single sheet of paper from his jacket pocket and swapped it with page 14 of the agreement, the page outlining the cultural preservation guarantees. "All in order," Thorne said, stepping back with a greasy smile. Sheikh Abdullah picked up the gold pen. He looked at Karim, then at Gabriel. "We are ready to trust you with the land of our fathers," he said solemnly. He was about to sign when Gabriel leaned forward. "Wait, Sayyidi," she said in Arabic, her voice sharp. Something was wrong. The page the sheikh was about to sign didn't look right. The spacing of the calligraphy was slightly off. "Gabriel, what are you doing?" Karim hissed in English. "He's about to sign. Don't interrupt." "Let me see the agreement," Gabriel insisted, reaching out. "Do not be disrespectful," Karim snapped, his old anxieties flooding back. He was so close to the win. He couldn't let her ruin it now with her perfectionism. "Sit down, Gabriel." Gabriel ignored him. She grabbed the edge of the leather portfolio, pulling it toward her. Sheikh Abdullah looked affronted by the sudden aggression. Gabriel scanned page 14. Her blood ran cold, the clause guaranteeing that the ancient burial grounds on the site would be protected forever and untouched had been altered. A single verb had been changed. It now read that the burial grounds would be relocated immediately and paved. It was a death sentence for the deal. If the sheikh signed that, and then found out, it wouldn't just be a breach of contract, it would be a blood feud. It was the ultimate insult. "Karim, look at this," Gabriel whispered urgently in English, pointing to the text. "It's been changed. The burial clause. It says we're going to pave over the graves." Karim snatched the book. He read the line. His face went grey. "You..." Karim looked at Gabriel, his eyes wide with horror. The old programming, The deep-seated belief that she was just an incompetent waitress surged back, fueled by panic. "You drafted the final version this morning. You put this in here." "What? No," Gabriel gasped. "I checked it 3 times. It was perfect." "What is this whispering?" Sheikh Abdullah demanded, angrily in Arabic, slamming his hand on the table. "Are you playing games with us, Al-Zayed?" Karim looked at the angry sheikh, then at the damning document, and finally at Gabriel. The pressure was too much. He cracked. "It is her!" Karim shouted in Arabic, pointing an accusing finger at Gabriel, desperate to deflect the blame from his family name. "My translator. She is incompetent. She made a grave error. I apologize, Sheikh Abdullah. This woman is a saboteur." Gabriel felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. After everything today, after how hard she fought for him, he threw her to the wolves instantly. "Karim, you know that's a lie," Gabriel pleaded in English, her voice shaking with betrayal. "I didn't write that." "Silence!" Karim roared. "Get out of this tent! You are fired! Get out!" The guard stepped forward. Julian Thorne stood in the corner, a smug, triumphant grin plastering his sweaty face. Gabriel looked at Karim. The ice in his eyes was back. The connection they had built on the plane, the respect during the negotiation, it was gone, evaporated in the desert heat. She was just the help again, and she was taking the fall. As guards grabbed Gabriel, Ali stepped forward from the shadows. "Stop," he commanded, holding up a tablet. He played a high-resolution video from a hidden security lens. It showed Julian Thorne swapping the contract pages while Karim was distracted. The tent fell dead silent. Karim's face crumbled as the horrifying truth hit him. He had trusted a snake and banished a savior. Thorne was dragged away, screaming by the Bedouin guards. Karim turned to Gabriel, falling to his knees to beg for forgiveness. But the damage was done. She walked out into the desert heat without looking back. It took 6 months of Karim groveling, paying off her father's medical bills anonymously, and publicly apologizing before she agreed to meet him. Today, Gabriel doesn't just work for the Al-Zayed Corporation. She owns the controlling stake in the Heritage Foundation. And Karim? He is happily just the man who carries her briefcase, finally understanding that the most valuable asset he ever found wasn't in a ledger. It was the waitress he once tried to silence. And that is how Gabriel Mitchell went from serving tables to ruling the boardroom. She taught a billionaire that dignity is the one currency that never devalues. If you loved this story of karma and sweet revenge, please smash that like button. It helps the channel so much. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Would you have forgiven Karim? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.